Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, one more do-over. Israeli coalition leaders trying to avoid new elections by the skin of their teeth. Meanwhile, coronavirus vaccination applications surge as the government targets fake news about the drug on social media. And finally, with a budget crisis and possible elections taking center stage, can a bill to legalize cannabis manage to squeak into the busy Knesset docket in time? Stay tuned for more. Israelis waking up this morning to reports of tragedy. Government officials offering condolences as the body of an Israeli mother of 6 was found in the Rehan forest in the West Bank. Investigators believing that she may have been the victim of a terror attack. 52-year-old Esther Horgan left her home in the settlement of Tal Menashe Sunday evening for a jog in the woods nearby, but failing to return home, security forces launched a manhunt Monday morning. Paramedics pronouncing Horgan dead at the scene, with early statements saying that she had suffered traumatic head injury from a rock in cold blood. Terror attack or not, though, search for a murder suspect is underway, with all directions being investigated. Esther is remembered as a dear woman, mother, and wife who was full of kindness. Meanwhile, a suspect in Saturday night's attempted Molotov cocktail firebombing attack has been arrested. The Shin Bet and the IDF reportedly taking a man in for questioning Sunday evening. All right, now in yet another last-minute bid to avoid fourth election, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and coalition partner Defense Minister Benny Gantz met overnight to discuss the 2020 budget, and this despite having only a week left in the 2020 year. Convening late Sunday night, Israeli government leaders Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz have agreed to once again delay the upcoming deadline to pass a budget for 2020. And in doing so, they've delayed the dissolving of the Knesset for a fourth round of elections in 2 years' time. Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party stating that they'll introduce the delay bill today, setting the new 2020 budget deadline for December 31st, the very last day of the year. Blue and White then adding that they expect to set the 2021 budget deadline by a week later on January 5th, or else the Knesset will dissolve for elections on March 23rd. But the whiplash over budget negotiations and rumored repeat elections are not ending there. Several Blue and White MKs saying now that they plan to torpedo the delay deal in the Knesset Monday morning. Similarly, recent Likud defector and New Hope Party chair Gideon Sa'ar, among other critics, calling out the coalition for, quote, looting the Knesset, belittling its citizens, and damaging the fabric of democratic and state life like no other government before it. And indeed, it seems many others may feel that an election is needed by now anyway. Anti-government protests entering their 6th straight month of weekend demonstrations, as polls show increasing support for Sa'ar and other opposition parties. The latest numbers keeping Netanyahu's Likud in the lead, but with about 28 seats as opposed to its current 36. New and opposition parties New Hope, Yesh Atid Telem, Yamina, and the Joint List, meanwhile, coming in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place respectively, with 19, 16, 14, and 11 seats. As for Netanyahu's allies, the religious Shas and United Torah Judaism parties are each expected to get 7 seats, while Benny Gantz's Blue and White falls from 14 mandates currently to just barely clearing the electoral threshold of 3.5% and receiving 5 Knesset spots. Joining me now with more on the budget and coalition crisis, Ziv Maor, director of the Likud Party's Hallel Forum. Ziv, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now, in your opinion, will a 2020 budget be passed by the end of the year? And what is even the point, really, of trying at this point?
Well, the point of trying at this point is merely legal. It makes easier for the government to make actual payments it committed to previously this year if the budget bill eventually passes and becomes an act. This is why it is important. This is important for bureaucratical reasons. It is not important for the public. We've just witnessed today the Minister of Finance, Israel Katz, announcing that grants for the unemployed will be given generously throughout 2021 without the budget even being improved. So for the public as a whole, this really doesn't matter. The real question that concerns at least the right-wing portion of the public in Israel today is whether or not the looter of Israel's democracy, Avi Nissencohen, will keep his position as Minister of Justice. This is the real question at hand, and I can tell you that within the Likud, many push for the leadership to stand on the point that regardless of whether a budget is being achieved or not, Nissencohen, Minister of Justice, cannot keep to his post, and he must be let go in order for the Knesset to continue to reign. And if there is no way to send him away, then election is the only solution.
Well, so, I mean, I want to come back to the fact that you're saying that to the public, it largely won't matter what the budget will be because, you know, the handouts from the government for the coronavirus are still going to be doled out. But the budget has far-reaching implications, you know, way beyond grants. So I don't know if it's accurate to say that it doesn't matter.
It has not. According to Israeli law, if a budget is not being accepted, regardless if it's in December or March in a given year, then the month within which the budget was not approved will have 1/12 portion of the previous year's budget. So the government, unlike, for instance, what would have been in such an instance in the United States, in Israel, the government keeps on running. So services keeps on being given, and civil employees keep getting their salaries. And the importance of this to the public is very insignificant. Actually, the only importance of it is because in Israel's basic law, if a budget is not being passed by March each year, then we are going to election. Now, here in 2020, we had elections in March. So the passing of the budget was postponed 1 month after another, again and again, until we've reached this point of December. But to the public, it really doesn't matter. The government keeps functioning. So it is only a bureaucratical issue. There is no importance for it in the public whatsoever.
All right, well, something that at least some of the public are concerned about is the fact that by continuing to delay the budget and thus continuing to delay whether or not we have elections, we're in this limbo where the government neither does what the public supposedly wants, nor dissolves to allow the public to elect somebody else. Do you think that the government is essentially holding the public hostage?
No, I think that the public officials are holding the public and the democracy as hostage. Look, we are in a government that has its both hands shut. There was no decisive results in the past election this March, and the result is a government that is not capable of making decisions on its own. And in Israel, we are aware of the reality when this is the situation, then the individuals who actually make the decisions, who actually reign, are the public officials, the unelected, the appointed ones. We have just seen this past day a confrontation between Minister Dudi Amsalem and the Attorney General, telling him that the Attorney General should not be able to instruct the minister what to do, which is, by the way, the law and the command of democracy itself. But it seems when we are in this situation that our ministers, our members of the Knesset, are not capable of making decisions on our behalf. And this is very poor for the condition of Israel's democracy. The government is de facto in the hands of unelected public official, and this is a very negative situation for us.
All right, Ziv Moel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Moving on, the campaign to vaccinate the nation against coronavirus seemingly biting off more than it could chew as health clinics across the country see a sudden surge in interest. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Health Minister Yuli Edelstein's push to convince the public to go get vaccinated working overtime. In a massive about-face, demand for the new coronavirus vaccine has now tripled practically overnight, with at least 2/3 of Israelis now voicing willingness and even excitement to go get the shot, as opposed to just 20-some% of Israelis who were openly willing to vaccinate last week. And at least 170,000 Israelis have now already made appointments to vaccinate since Sunday morning.
Our Prime Minister took it, and a lot of very smart people take it, and I read a lot of articles about it, and I think it's quite safe, and I think that Corona is very dangerous sickness.
It's a very exciting day for me. I was vaccinated about 3 hours ago. I feel fine. It's a great day after those terrible 10 months, black 10 months fighting here in the hospital, seeing all those patients.
I think it's a chance to be able to live normally once again. And I'd like to be able to give my grandchildren a big hug and a big kiss.
Even many leaders from the ultra-Orthodox sector who until recently have opposed coronavirus restrictions are changing their tune. Highly respected Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, for one, posting a video on Sunday telling his followers not to be afraid and to go get vaccinated, along with Sephardic Chief Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, Ashkenazi Chief Rabbi David Lau, and Bnei Brak Mayor Rabbi Avraham Rubinstein. Still, not everyone is convinced, many Israelis resisting the growing evidence in favor of inoculation.
אני בגדול מתנגד לכל העניין הזה של החיסון. אני חושב שממה שהבנתי, השיטה והזמן שלקח להכין את זה הוא קצת מוזר. כאילו קרה מהר מאוד. וממה שאני הבנתי יש איזה עניין בדילול אוכלוסייה, משהו כזה, כאילו לא יודע, לא הבנתי יותר מדי מה זה, אבל ממה שאני הבנתי אני לא מוכן להכניס דברים שאני לא יודע איפה הכינו אותם, מה יש בפנים, מי נגע, מי לא נגע, לתוך הגוף שלי. וזהו בגדול.
Meanwhile, Israeli authorities working diligently with Facebook to remove fake news and misinformation about the vaccines from the Facebook platform. The Israeli state attorney saying that some publications intended to sow panic and pose a real danger to public health might even be considered a criminal offense. Stories including phony claims of the vaccine's dangerous side effects, efficacy, or inclusion of tracking microchips. One deleted conspiracy theory even claims that the vaccine is poisonous, intent on reducing the global human population.
So now, what do you do about all the fake news running around regarding the vaccinations for coronavirus and their effects? Well, an organization named Science Abroad just did a panel yesterday where they discussed this very issue. And joining us now is Dr. Marianna Truman, former North Carolina Regional Manager at Science Abroad. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, now...
Thank you.
So first of all, what is Science Abroad? Let's start with that.
Of course. So Science Abroad is a non-profit organization that more than for 14 years we are collaborating with the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration. And basically we connect all Israeli postdocs from all the world. We have more than 4,000 members around the world, Israeli researchers abroad. And we provide the connection, professional connection and social connection to all Israeli scientists abroad.
All right,
yes. So basically,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, so I was going to ask, so Science Abroad, as this panel that works with towards bringing science and intellectuals back to Israel, you did a panel yesterday about fake news industry surrounding the coronavirus vaccine. Can you tell us about that?
Of course. So we had a panel that the main aim of the panel was to bridge the gap between the scientific community and the general public, and to explain in simple words the science that we do, the basics of the vaccine, of COVID-19 vaccine, and to communicate our science, to communicate the knowledge that is available to us, to the public. So basically we had a panel with doctors, with MDs and postdocs from Harvard and from Israel, and explained and answered all the questions that are that the public is dealing with during these challenging days.
So of course I can come up with a couple off the top of my head, but maybe coming after this panel, you can tell us what maybe one of the most common questions or concerns from the public is.
I believe that the most challenging question and the most intriguing question is whether the vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, is safe, whether it is safe for general public or for children, for pregnant women. I believe that the safety of this vaccine is the main issue, the main fear that we are dealing with.
Well, and so what do you tell people? Do you just say, hey, there's nothing to worry about, don't worry, this has been under investigation for a couple of years, or is there maybe something more concrete that you can offer?
So we are telling the truth. We are telling to listen to scientists, to listen to people that are dealing with this area, to consult immunologists, to consult doctors, to consult people with wide knowledge, and not read every these days we are talking about fake news.
All right, Dr. Truman, thank you so much. I think you said it best. When you have concerns about medicine, talk to a doctor. Thank you again very much.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right, at any rate, though the coronavirus vaccination campaign has hit the ground running, the road to herd immunity is a long one, and it's only just beginning. Israeli officials, in the meantime, announcing new nationwide restrictions. Chana Rifkin with the details.
Israel's coronavirus cabinet once again convening for an emergency session Sunday night in light of the latest virus mutation discovered in Europe. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu trying to calm the public, but while announcing returning restrictions.
אתמול שמענו מגורמים בארגון הבריאות העולמי על המוטציה החדשה בנגיף הקורונה, ושמענו גם את הצהרתו של בוריס ג'ונסון, ראש ממשלת בריטניה, על התפשטות הנגיף עם המוטציה בארצו. בשעה שאנחנו יוצאים היום לדרך עם מבצע החיסונים הענק, יש לנו גם אתגר נוסף שאנחנו חייבים לטפל בו. אנחנו עושים הכל כדי למנוע את כניסת המוטציה לישראל, וקיבלנו היום החלטה קשה, אבל היא מחויבת המציאות. סגרנו את השמיים לכל הטיסות לישראל, מבריטניה, מדנמרק ומדרום אפריקה, אלה המדינות שבהן נוכחת המוטציה. במידת הצורך אנחנו נוסיף מדינות נוספות.
Now, in addition to closing the skies to foreign visitors from these nations, all Israelis returning from abroad will be forced into quarantine or summoned for virus testing starting Wednesday. But more importantly, ministers at Sunday's COVID cabinet meeting also discussed the possibility of third national lockdowns, as once again, the overnight spread of the virus in Israel rose by nearly 3,000 cases. The new number of active cases hitting upwards of 25,160, and the death toll likewise breaking past 3,100.
Now, in other news, Israel is coming under attack by foreign powers again, just covertly. Supposedly, Iran-linked groups claiming to have hacked the computer systems of Israel Aerospace Industries in the latest of a series of breaches targeting Israeli firms. The latest breach by a group known as Pay to Key, revealing its alleged hack on Twitter, and then also identifying IAI subsidiary administrators' full names and passwords. Far from random, though, Israeli cybersecurity firm ClearSky, which first identified these hacks, is saying that this is part of an ongoing and coordinated Iranian effort to create panic through information warfare, with at least 15 to 20 other companies suspected of being targeted, and following several similar breaches reported over the last few weeks. That said, Israeli cyber experts are sending volleys right back, most famously back in May when a number of allegedly Israeli cyber attacks wreaked havoc across Iranian ports and chemical installations. Meanwhile, White House advisor Jared Kushner is arriving in Israel ahead of the first direct flight from Tel Aviv to Morocco.
Kushner landing with a small delegation including Israeli-Palestinian peace envoy Avi Berkowitz, and set to meet with United States Ambassador to Israel David Friedman, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz, and other members of the Israeli National Security Directorate. Then the group is scheduled to make the historic first ever public direct flight between Israel and the Moroccan capital of Rabat on Tuesday. This following the recent announcement of official normalization between Morocco and Israel, the fourth such normalization between Israel and an Arab or Muslim state since the summer. And Prime Minister Netanyahu and Jared Kushner, for their parts, hailing the new partnerships as they planted trees in Jerusalem's Grove of Nations.
Making these things happen. You have left through the Abraham Accords a mark on our region, Jared. I don't think it's a passing mark. I don't think the seasonal rains will wash it away. I think it's here to stay. It's a great thing and something that we truly treasure.
Over the last 4 months, we've now achieved 4 peace agreements, and thanks to 4 years of hard work, and I do think that the benefits of that will be felt for many years to come.
Now, until recently, the long journey towards cannabis legalization in Israel was making slow but steady progress, and with a massive market just itching to get off the ground following the final government go-ahead. But with the national budget delayed again and with the Knesset on the verge of collapse, the billion-dollar industry may have to continue sitting idly indefinitely. That is, unless my next guest has something to say about it. Joining me now is attorney and cannabis legalization advocate Chagit Weinstock from the Weinstock Zahavi & Co. law firm. Chagit, thanks so much for being with us. Now, you're in several government committees discussing this issue. What makes you think that it's going to happen, and when is it going to happen?
It makes me think, 3 years ago it was just an imagination. And now when you have already a draft that talking about this legalization and so many people getting the medical insurance to be here in to use the cannabis. We are talking about 100,000 people that are going to be in this year and the next year. So the legalization, it's already here in Israel, but it's called medicalizations. It's a different issue. Now that we are talking about legalization, when we have a draft and we have everything and we've got everything in our hands, it's just a matter of time. Also about this, that the two governments, all the political groups, I think this is the only issue that they agree about. So I think it's going to be very, very fast. Something like in 3-4 months, we are going to see a different economy here in Israel in the cannabis industry.
Well, so what is standing in the way then between now and the reality you're talking about?
I think it's the technical things that the police have to get ready for this, and all the import issues. What is going to be legalization? It's going to be the pharmacies, or it's going to be by every store that you can buy cannabis? What are the all the issues that we are talking about, the draft that going to the financial and health ministries? They have to agree about how they are going to do this, all the techniques things, but that they have all the agree about it, that it's going to be here. I think it's a big issue here in Israel, and we are the biggest market in the world already. Well, everyone in the world taking eye on this market. We are going to be 1 million users, and it's a lot.
Well, and that really brings me to my next question. What are the consequences of this? What are the consequences of not passing this legalization? I mean, is it something that Israel can really deal with? Is that something we can live with, or?
Yeah. The industry now, we are doing billions here in the cannabis industry, because in the medicalization, every pharmacy in Israel earns something like 3 million shekels. It's less than $1 million a month, and it's a lot of money. So a lot of money going already in the medicalizations, not in the legalizations. So already here in Israel, it's going to the pharmacies, but it's only for ill persons. And I think it's good that the government have to think again about how they are going to do this. No if, but how. The if, we are already over it. Now how we are going to do this, and the how, it's very, very important, and not to do it by very fast, because we are already all the world looking for the Israelis market because of the knowledge, because of the market, because of the users, because we are already 12 years in the market or 13 years in the market. I think this is the oldest market in the world, so we are ready to go.
All right,
I'm also, present companies in the European market, in Germany, England, London, Spain, whatever. And I'm telling you that we are ready to go for the legalization. And I think that we are already in Israel by 1 million users.
Wow.
So Israel want to get taxes for this and get some money from all this industry, the government, and they are doing great with this.
Well, following this pandemic and the current economic situation that the whole world is in, I'm sure we could use it. Until then, Chagit, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear but chilly, with lows averaging 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. And then tomorrow is expected to be partly cloudy and cool, with an average high of roughly 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. And now, before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. I can't tell if this is edited or just fantastic. What are those, kiwis or something? Tiny bobbin birds. I'm gonna call them bobbin birds. I love the moves. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.26 shekels to the American dollar and 2.53 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.